One of the things I'm most proud of is our mental health department, where we provide low-cost counseling to special needs individuals and their families. During times like this is something that everyone can use.
Well,
Happy
hello.
Tuesday. Happy Fat Tuesday.
Happy Fat Tuesday. So for those of you
Which makes sense for us COVID gals. Try not to think about it.
Because we've been eating and the refrigerator is just a few steps away, and
well, I think
that's what's happening.
It's a lot of people eating and drinking.
Yeah,
that's true. It's there's a lot of booze going on these days.
I think what Navah is really referencing here is it's Fat Tuesday, which is the biggest celebration, used to be, in New Orleans, pre-Lent, which starts tomorrow. And I just read an article that they're decorating houses instead of floats. So,
but you said also that it's actually the law that people not gather. Yeah,
yeah, you can't. Well, Mardi Gras is thousands of people for weeks.
But I remember seeing an article. Hey, Caroline.
Happy Tuesday.
Caroline was telling me about her. She did that. The prom, the online prom. What is that online prom called?
Virtual prom.
Yeah, the virtual prom.
What
But
is it?
There's a famous guy who did it.
Yeah.
Did everyone get dressed up?
Yeah.
Oh, so like
Caroline, it was Zoom though, wasn't it? There's a famous.
I'm imagining they got dressed up. And
say this. I'm gonna blame this on my migraines. Everything just goes
Zoom. Well, here, let me talk a little bit about. Although it's the week of Mardi Gras and there's a lot of happiness used to be going on with pre-pandemic celebrations. What we've talked about, what Navah and I decided to do for our show today is.
Tim Tebow. Thank you, producer.
Tim Tebow.
Yes, he does a wonderful, amazing program with special needs families around the world, around the United States, and they've really taken it to another level. And our friends have been posting how they were doing like drive-by proms, and really, really, it's called the Night to Shine prom. Thank you.
Oh, that's adorable.
My head is
very nice. So, well, that reminds me of our prom last year that we had, which was extremely successful. We had Down Syndrome LA, and we had almost 200 people, I think.
And we were just talking today, Matt and I, about how much we miss our community events. I mean, we miss them so much, and we miss our community. We miss the families that we have worked so hard to support, and it's just not the same when it's not in person. And God willing, that's going to return one of these days.
For sure, definitely.
So go ahead, Chrisa. You were telling us about our topic.
Although things, were very different and life was very different pre-pandemic, and we were used to a lot of our festive activities and fun proms and parties and things like that. What we decided to do is a whole show on focusing on others and individuals' loneliness and the numbers. I was really interested in the numbers of young people, the impact of them not going to school and having social isolation, and how hard that is. I hear it in the news all the time right now, that in Los Angeles, they're talking about, some of the news channels are talking about bringing the students back, and how hard it's been mentally for young adults and teens and even younger. And so I heard on the news today in LA that they were trying to figure out a way to get back kinder through like third grade.
I think that would be the first, and special ed classes. But I think realistically,
they announced today that they're not going.
Yeah, I was just going to say realistically.
I just heard it this morning. I'm sorry, we're talking
not
to our
until
producer.
2022, right?
They're not going back until next year.
Yeah.
That is
but again, now we're talking about the ramifications of false information.
There
because
you go.
I was just reading on one of my mommy sites. This woman said something like, I'm finally able to breathe a sigh of relief because I read, you guys probably read the same exact thing. And I read that my kids are going to go back to school. And then this onslaught of answers that said, no, you're wrong.
But I can tell you,
her despair.
On my way into the center, I was listening to the radio, KFWB or something like that. And they said, good news. Here, they're talking about getting kinder through like third grade back in.
I think it's false news.
And it's just, I mean, I was like, oh, great. Oh, is this mean a light at the end of the tunnel? Like you said, now despair, false information.
I think so.
Mixed,
we, from Matt's conversation with Valerie Veneman, who to me is the voice of real, she really knows. I mean, whatever Valerie says goes, in my opinion.
Okay.
And she said that there is really not a concrete return in place. And so unfortunately.
That is brutal. I mean, so basically, I looked at a survey. I was looking at some articles online, and they said that there was a survey done in May of last year. We're almost coming up on a year, right? May of last year, 1,000 people surveyed. And this was back then after we had been in the pandemic for almost 3 months, that 7 out of 10 teens had reported mental health struggles, and that 61% of those had said they had an increase in loneliness, 43% said they had experienced depression, and 55% of those teens had experienced anxiety. So, these are big numbers, and this was last year.
Yeah,
so
I'm sure that those numbers are almost doubled.
Right. And in December, in Los Angeles, we had a second wave.
Yeah.
And it was extreme pandemic, lockdown, go back, shut everything down. And we were just burned out at that point. But we did it, or some of us did it.
And we had the holidays to keep us company. And then we had New Year's and everything. And I think, I'm hearing a lot from families where they're having mental health issues with even younger kids.
Absolutely, And so they're talking about, even though there's a pandemic, there's an epidemic of depression and anxiety, and still the anxiety and the panic, and that we're going to have a lot of really some mental health issues, and
long-term mental health issues,
almost like a trauma. The other day, in Los Angeles, the restaurants opened up again, and I went to dinner with a friend who is on her second shot. And we were very far across from each other at the table, and she kept going closer and moving closer, and I kept moving back, and I kept moving back. And I finally was on the other side of the table, and there was nowhere else for me to go. And I just said to her, I said, I'm so sorry, but I feel like you're a little too close.
Yeah.
Can you please move back?
I think in these days, people appreciate, they're not going to hold that against you.
She wasn't, but I felt like, oh my God, what's wrong with me? Like she's just, is it 6 feet? Is it 7 feet? Is it 4 feet? I don't know. But that trauma of being very vigilant this past year has really seeped in.
Well, one of the things that we were talking about on another show, Matt and I were saying that after just in normal, regular years past, there's a hard kind of transition with kids after the summer. And this is just a normal summer schedule. And special needs kids, they really struggle, some more than others.
There's a little regression after the summer. Yeah.
Okay, so now we're talking about what's going to be the long-term effects of these kids having this social disconnect, having the isolation, our teens and adults specifically, but even the younger guys. I mean, the regular, what we as special needs parents, we fight so hard to get our kids social skills together.
Right.
A lot of people use ABA tricks to get their kids to be able to sit still, be in class, be appropriately prepared for class. All of these things are going to be beyond regression. I mean, it's going to be
really tough.
I'm worried about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you touched on a really good point that typically when special needs students are gone for the summer, they come back in, and then there's a little bit of a honeymoon period. They're very excited.
Yeah.
And then it kind of falls away again. They realize that, oh no, we're back in school.
Everything getting back into schedule, even after a long weekend, you see the issues. But for summer, I know that a lot of the kids just waking up in the morning, getting ready for school, it's about a month of getting back into a regular schedule.
Routine. Yeah.
And it terrifies me that the idea of that, because we have, basically 3 kids in 3 different schools. And what about my parents who are single parents who don't have a person that they can count on,
Right.
and one guy goes one way and one guy that goes the other. These are things that keep our parents up at night.
Yes.
And another element that we were talking about with feeling alone and solitary is if you are a single parent and you are a single parent with a special needs child.
Yes. Your support
uncertainty
system?
and fear, financial uncertainty, all these things are keeping these parents awake at night. And then they're having to function. And sometimes, when you have a special needs, high need child,
right,
who doesn't sleep, who might be having behaviors that are connected to all of this, it's beyond difficult. It's beyond difficult.
So, you're talking about hopelessness and despair.
That's the next
right
stage.
Here. I'm like pointing to it.
I'm getting to the hopelessness part.
That, this article talks about the many aspects of regular uncertainty in the world, which is what you were talking about. We're just always in uncertainty, right? Sort of in the unknown. We need to be flexible, which is what we had to be in the very beginning stages of the pandemic. But, but now we don't know when things will return to normal or whatever normal is.
Mm-hmm.
And that, many students and young adults and regular adults like us, if we're regular, experience feelings of hopelessness and depression, but that depression and anxiety can actually change the ability for your thinking skills. And so when you're
for sure,
when you're in anxiety,
I attest to that.
Yeah, right. When you're in anxiety or depression, attention, focus, memory, all of that is impacted, even in your processing of your memory, short-term to long-term memory. And decision making skills.
Is there a picture of me with that description?
Well, you just said that the other day. You go, I feel like I have your headaches, your brain.
There is a feeling like you can't. I mean, I always say it feels like I have peanut butter in my head, where everything is just like it forms in my head, but I can't make it connect to my mouth. And there is a condition with fibromyalgia called fibrofog. Yes. And it's like your brain has a brain fog. And I feel like I have that all the time.
So this article is also saying that even for students that might be in depression and anxiety or feelings of panic, that when they get overwhelmed, it's hard to deal with anxiety. But it can impact your students' ability to learn and retain information.
Absolutely.
So that's what's happening to you.
100%.
So we take our short term, and then it goes through the hippocampus, and then we put it into our long term. If you're in that fog or the peanut butter fog, you're not going to be able to really retain any of that. And so that it actually can obstruct your learning. So your students, and so here again, this is speaking to things that can make the student feel more whole. Social interaction, activities outside of the home. So it's really, really important to keep, that schedule and include exercise and other things so that you can kind of wake up the brain and wake up the student to keep them in
literally, because so many of our kids are learning in their bedrooms. And how many times parents out there, including myself and Matt, we go into our virtual students' classroom and they're sleeping.
Okay.
That is very common right now. But I think a lot of what parents are having to do at this point, after a year of this, Mishugas, is be flexible.
Yes.
Because if you have a child who is really struggling with mental health, because of everything that they're going through. And these kids, to be on a screen 8 hours a day, seated, somebody like Eddie who has ADHD, just being seated, like myself, I am. It's very hard for me. I'm bouncing. But these kids, they need their escapism time. They need their video games. They need their, iPad, YouTubes or whatever. I think we need to be a little more flexible with the rewards. But as long as, and I agree with you 100%, as long as you partner that with the physical activity and the sunshine and the things that really wake up the brain and anytime you get in the sun and you do exercise, it's gonna
exactly. It's gonna jar you.
Word?
It's gonna
dopamine
bump you. Oh, your serotonin.
Yeah, your serotonin, because so many of our kids are so much more sedentary. I mean, my Eddie's doctor, the great Jay Gordon, was talking about how there's this whole, there's a whole nother pandemic in a way of all the kids who are becoming sedentary and gaining weight and getting, early onset childhood diabetes and all this stuff. And these are things where Dr. J feels they should just open the schools. Let's open them and let the chips fall where they may, because the pros outweigh the cons. That's
what a lot of people are talking about. A lot of people are saying, that it's going to be too hard to pull these kids out of this decline in mental well-being. And academic decline. For sure. Academic regression. I don't even have the statistics on that.
It's got to be, there's no way there's not kids that aren't going to have to repeat grades.
But also long-term despair. So let's say, so my nephew's not able to attend his senior year. He had so many hopes and dreams that he wanted to, and goals he wanted to get to. Last year, we did a show on seniors
Max Tubar,
that were not able to graduate and the disappointment that they had endured.
Right.
So, what happens in 3 to 5 years from now when they say, well, I never got my senior year. I never got to go to prom, or I never got to do any of that stuff.
Great fodder to hold against your parents. You could get a trip out of that, or a car, kids.
You can't blame your parents for a pandemic.
My God. My kids would use that like, oh man,
oh my gosh, just
saving
it
up.
Giving them you're giving them some
the firepower right now. Are you listening, Wolfie?
But I guess you could always, Mom, I didn't get to go to my
Georgie
senior
is
prom.
Going to be like, I need a Corvette I need it now, Mom.
He might not. But sometimes this doesn't show up in an obvious way. And so that despair and disappointment could show up later down the road.
Right.
But as clinicians, we want to dive in and sort of explore all of the issues that could be blocking somebody from having, calm in their life, or peacefulness, or having the happy life that they want. But one of the things I wanted to say is that during anxiety, and you've even talked about this, you get that foggy brain. And so what I tell a lot of people that are stuck at home, that have children at home on the Zoom, school Zoom, and they're on their work Zoom, is get out of the house and take that walk around the block, even if it's for 10 minutes.
Right.
It really does. It's like a change of scenery will do you good.
100%. 100%. And again, Chris and I will say this every show. We're talking about all of these things that are affecting your family unit. And the best possible way that you can help your family unit is to get them some mental health counseling. And how do they do that, Chrisa?
They can give me a call at 818-855-2199. Or you could send me an email if you'd like. But the best way would be, Producer Matt, did you do that?
Yeah, it's the scroll now. I love the scroll.
There it is.
But I think that as a parent, when you see the warning signs, it's always best to get in there to get them some support before it gets to any kind of critical zone, because so many of our kids, especially the teens and the adults,
this is exactly what you're talking about.
That these young adults are the future of our nation's social fabric. And they need to be given access to psychological help, and coupled with the development and dissemination of brief online content-based interventions
that encourage healthy lifestyles. Yeah. So this is what we're talking about, is that in the next few years, we don't know what the
outcome of
the pandemic and how it affects us.
Children. It's literally becoming like a whole, this is a whole new, I'm sure.
What was it? The baby boomers?
I was going to say the World War II babies that went through, European babies went through something different than American babies, but I'm sure that they, that there was so much trauma and so much PTSD. And maybe we should go back to those, look at what people did, and they didn't have the kind of tools that we have today. They didn't have the ability to do telehealth,
right?
Because there's so many people that say, well, Chrisa, I'd love to get my kid out there. And I was right there with them. You think about, well, I have to get this kid in the car, then I have to get this kid in his car seat, and all these reasons why you're not going to get mental health support, when here you can talk to somebody in the privacy of your own home. There's no excuse.
So here's another statistic here that already people have been obviously doing studies and surveying people, but the links between loneliness and other psychological issues, they describe
like people who don't get hugged enough.
That's exactly, there's feelings of loneliness.
I'm always getting in trouble that I don't hug people enough.
Well, so
close to me people, not like strangers.
Okay.
The hug strangers.
So interesting that you said that, because the article you sent me this morning, it was about a man. He wrote this article. He's 35-year-old male in London. And he said in the early days of the pandemic, he was really isolated. He said he started to realize it had been 3 months since he had actually been hugged by somebody. Physical contact. And the first contact he felt was when he went to the market and he gave the cashier his money, and she touched his hand to put the money. Aww. That was the first physical contact. And he was like, whoa, but she gave him his change, and he realized it had been 3 months since, and it's like those little things happen. It's I mean, when someone, we don't greet anybody with hugs anymore. We don't, it's this elbow thing, which is
right.
But whatever, that we're doing it, or kind of just bump into each other. But
well, I think again, the most important thing is that we get out of our cycle, because it's so easy, especially when you're feeling, because I think another thing, and another show that we have to do is about, there's a new terminology called pandemic paranoia.
Oh,
and these are people who really are being safe. They're doing the right thing, but they're doing it to an extreme where they're really, really isolating themselves more than they really need to. And on the other side of that is, how close do you come to not agoraphobia, but
agoraphobia?
Really?
Wait, oh, you mean OCD?
No, where you won't leave your house.
Agoraphobia.
Okay. I thought that was fear of heights.
You were right the first time. No, and Matt, I want to get to that question, that comment.
Mark Anthony, I love your music. My gosh.
But wait, I want to say one thing to what Navah was talking about, and that's still anxiety. That's still vigilance. So you're in an unconsciousness, consciously or subconsciously, you're still vigilant, and that's anxiety. And we really are going to have to work on. And you're taking it to the extreme. Yeah. And it's a bit OCD too.
Right. And those people, and I've talked to a lot of people, and I've said, what about if you just go to an isolated beach and you walk by yourself? And the people that I know that have done that.
There's people that won't do that.
Well, they
still fear.
They should do that, because I know people who have done that, and they said that it was life-changing for them.
Well,
Can you read Mark's famous singer, Mark?
Hi, Chrisa and Navah. How do you feel the COVID and the lack of hugging is affecting people? I feel so down and depressed.
Yes, that's exactly what we were just talking about, Mark. Yeah. It's like, a physical touch. We talked about before about how the Romanian orphans, they did a study on the brain development of Romanian orphans, and how their brain was literally not forming as a normal childhood newborn thing. Yes. Yeah. But it's the same thing with hugging, and it's the same thing with physical touch. It's not to that extreme, but there really have been studies that showed, you're healthier, you live longer. There's so many different things. So how do you substitute that in a way that is not going to get Mark?
Right. So what you can do, and I remember, I think producer Matt, we were talking about this with your son, Will, is that, people are really missing that physical touch. And that is, unfortunately, you can't always bring another person. So they utilize a pillow, maybe a body pillow.
I actually saw these pillows that you could make in the form of I'm not trying to get X-rated. Like it's going to be that.
They're
But
from Japan.
but it's like you could put your kitty. Steve could put his black and white kitty in the form of a pillow, whatever.
Yeah, so I've seen those.
I agree with this one 100%, Mark. Music. I was going to talk about blow up dolls. You think I was going to say that? No. Music has saved so many people's life, mental health, and Beatles music in particular.
Absolutely.
I agree with Mark. But
absolutely.
Oh my gosh, yes.
What have you been listening to? Did you make your own playlist?
I have this Stevie Wonder. It's from The Secret Life of Plants. And then when I am really having an anxiety attack, I go and lay in the sun. I put on a couple of these different songs on that album. But they're almost hypnotic, and there's so many different Beatles
I've been listening
songs
to
that are
classical.
hypnotic. Me too.
Calm classical
all
music.
the time.
And opera. I love the opera, and so it's a way to
opera is very stimulating, though.
Yeah,
and there's certain really relaxing.
But when I'm angry, I can listen to the opera, and it's just like
it's very.
But classical for me, I just love.
I do too. I grew up with classical music. Yeah. Matt hates it, but I love classical music.
We're gonna have to go to the. We're going to have to go to the Hollywood Bowl
Music
sometime.
is very helpful to me. Yes, Mark is saying music is very helpful to him during this crazy time.
Yes, for sure. But there are some songs that can allow you to reconnect to happier times.
Oh, totally.
Right? The soundtrack. I have like playlists from like my birthday 10 years ago.
Or we were Miss Judy, Judy, our music director. Yeah. Judy Langdon was saying, there are so many different songs that affect you in so many different ways.
Yes.
And they can make you sad they can make you happy. They can relax you. But, you put on something that's just uplifting and makes you want to dance, and dancing and moving and being in the sun. All of these things that's what we're going to say to you, Mark.
For sure. For sure. And Beatles, I mean, that's a happy time for anybody.
There are some sad Beatles songs. I think that one about the girl leaving.
Long and Winding Road.
She's leaving home.
Oh, yeah.
That song always makes me cry.
It's because it's a mom. It's from
I think about it about Aviva.
About your kids leaving home, of course.
Yes.
You're a mom of 6. Your kids are leaving home. For sure. But yes. But yeah, music has many effects on the sensory smell with a song, and a time when we were at a rock show. One of my friends posted on Facebook the other day. He said he was cleaning out his garage and he was just going crazy. And then he wrote in all caps, I want to go to a rock show where I can listen to music blasting so that my ears hurt, and that I can be in a crowd of 10,000 people and just feel the energy of the music, And he was really missing that.
I think a lot of people are missing live music, including our producer.
There's
one of our wonderful
mom. There's Mom.
Yes.
Right there. She's listening. She's my
music,
biggest fan.
Exercise, and hugs.
Biggest fan. Thanks, Mom. Yeah, she's upset because I haven't given her very many hugs.
I know.
So
that's the hardest part is when your parent.
Although my mom is getting her second shot today.
Oh, today? Okay.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens.
I hope she has an easy time.
Yeah. So that she might be out and about, in a couple of days.
I know. I hope so.
We'll see. But
one last question before we wrap it up.
Yeah, oh my gosh, it's 3:30.
My Jimmy loves it when I sing soul songs to him. It's really helped him during COVID. Michael and Wyatt like Motown and rock, but my Jimmy is filled with soul. I love soul.
Love soul.
I grew up with that.
Stevie Wonder.
Yeah, and Earth, Wind, and Fire. And
yep.
I'm trying to think of my mind.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Sam Cooke.
No, Johnny Mathis was our guy because David was a Johnny Mathis impersonator.
Oh, your big brother. Oh, he was.
He was.
Oh, I didn't know that. But he does a little bit of not the big.
He does.
Thing.
No, he does swing. A lot of funk and a lot of soul stuff.
Okay.
Okay. Well.
Oh my God! It went like this.
And next Tuesday we're going to have a more uplifting show. This was a very it's a tough subject.
Necessary.
To be alone is a tough thing, and we would say to you, please reach out to us and let us help you and support you. And we've never had to turn a family away based on their ability to pay.
Right.
So don't let that be an obstacle. And please reach out to us, reach out to your loved ones, and
call somebody and say hi. Just do an act of kindness.
Absolutely.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Bye. Take care.
See you
Stay
next
healthy.
week.